In the small village of Ryan, the days were simple. The sun rose early, and the villagers worked hard, living peaceful lives. But things began to change when two strange children arrived at the local school. They were twins, Zara and Zane. At first glance, the twins looked out of place. They didn't fit in with the other kids. Their skin was dark, stained with dirt from the jungle. Their clothes were torn and patched. Their hair was long and tangled, like they hadn't seen a comb in months. The other children at school stared at them, whispering behind their backs. "Who are these kids?" one of the girls asked, pointing at Zara and Zane. "They're just jungle kids," Kyle, the biggest bully in school, laughed. "They probably don't know anything about real life. They're wild." The twins didn't care. They had grown up in the jungle, raised by their parents who had taught them to survive. They didn't need anyone's approval, but their appearance made them an easy target for the school bullies. Zara and Zane didn't speak much to the other kids. They simply watched, their eyes sharp, taking in every detail. They could see the way the other children looked at them, with curiosity, fear, and sometimes laughter. But there was something in their eyes that made the other kids uneasy. They didn't show it, but the twins knew. It wasn't long before the teasing started. "Hey, jungle kids, got lost in the forest," Kyle called out during lunch. He stood with his friends, laughing at the twins. Zane didn't respond. He simply ate his food, his eyes focused on something in the distance. Zara was the same, her head down, but she was always listening. The children didn't understand. They thought the twins were weak. They thought they were just like other children, naive and scared. They had no idea what Zara and Zane had lived through, what they had learned. Every day after school, while the other kids ran home to play, Zara and Zane stayed behind, practicing in the shadows. They didn't need a teacher. They had been trained by their father, who had once been a soldier. Their mother had taught them survival, how to read the signs of the forest, and how to fight when necessary. Zara moved quickly, her legs strong, her body light as a feather. Zane was no different. His movements were fast and precise. They practiced every day, pushing their bodies to the limit. They fought against trees, rocks, and each other. They knew that to survive in the jungle, they needed to be faster, stronger, and smarter than anything that tried to hurt them. But they were careful. They knew better than to show their strength in front of the other children. They knew that the moment they did, the teasing would turn into something worse. One day, however, things changed. It all started when Kyle decided to take things too far. During recess, Kyle saw Zane sitting alone by the tree, reading a book. He walked over with a sneer on his face. "What are you reading, jungle boy? Can't you even play like a normal kid?" Kyle mocked, kicking the book out of Zane's hands. Zane stood up slowly, brushing the dirt off his clothes. He didn't say a word, but his eyes were cold, so cold that it made Kyle stop for a second. "Don't talk to me like that," Zane said quietly, his voice calm but firm. Kyle didn't like the way Zane was looking at him. It made him feel uneasy. But he didn't back down. "What's wrong?" Scared of a little joke. Without warning, Kyle shoved Zane. The other kids watched, expecting Zane to back away, to show fear. But Zane didn't move. He stood his ground. Zara, who had been watching from a distance, stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Kyle. She could see the situation turning dangerous, but she also knew that her brother wouldn't back down. Zane took a deep breath. He didn't want to fight, but he also didn't want to show weakness. He couldn't let Kyle think that bullying him would be easy. Kyle raised his fist to strike, but in a blur of movement, Zane dodged. His body twisted, and before Kyle knew it, Zane had knocked him to the ground with a swift push to his chest. The other kids gasped. They couldn't believe it. Kyle, the biggest kid in school, was lying on the ground, stunned and helpless. Zara stepped forward, standing next to her brother. She looked down at Kyle, who was slowly getting to his feet. "You should leave us alone," Zara said, her voice quiet but full of authority. Kyle looked around at the other kids, his face red with anger. But no one laughed. No one joined in. The other children could see the strength in Zara and Zane, and they didn't know what to do with it. Kyle gritted his teeth. "This isn't over," he muttered before walking away. Zara and Zane didn't say anything more. They didn't need to. They had shown the others something they couldn't ignore. They weren't just jungle kids. They were warriors. And they weren't afraid of anyone. The days following the fight with Kyle were quiet, but a strange tension hung in the air. Word of the twins' skill spread quickly through the school. No one dared to tease them again, but everyone was still talking about what had happened. The other children were curious. They watched Zara and Zane carefully, wondering how two jungle kids could be so strong. But they were too afraid to ask. Instead, they whispered behind their backs, sharing rumors about their past. Zara and Zane paid no attention to the gossip. They went about their days like nothing had changed. They weren't looking for trouble. They just wanted to survive. They never asked for the attention, but it followed them wherever they went. One afternoon during lunch, the twins sat alone on the grassy hill outside the school building. The other kids were scattered around the playground, talking and laughing. But there was a quiet space around Zara and Zane, as if the other children could sense there was something different about them. "Do you think they're dangerous?" one of the girls asked her friend, watching the twins from a distance. "They must be. I mean, look at them," her friend whispered. "They don't even act like normal kids. It's like they don't care what anyone thinks." But there was someone who didn't feel the same way: Kyle. The day after he had been knocked to the ground by Zane, he had spent hours thinking about what had happened. He didn't like losing. He didn't like feeling weak. He was angry. But more than that, he was determined. "I'm not going to let them get away with that," Kyle muttered to himself one afternoon. He gathered a group of his friends and approached the twins. Zara and Zane were sitting on the hill again, as usual, eating quietly. They had learned to ignore the whispers, to block out the stares. But this time, something was different. Kyle and his group were walking toward them, not to tease, but to challenge. "You think you're tough, huh?" Kyle said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone yesterday. But today's going to be different." Zane didn't look up. He kept eating, his expression calm. Zara glanced at her brother, then at Kyle. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She knew this was coming. "We're not looking for trouble," Zara said, her voice steady. Kyle laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the air. "Oh, but you've got trouble now. You can't just walk around here thinking you're better than everyone else. We've got a score to settle." Zane stood up slowly, his eyes locked on Kyle. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His body was already in a defensive stance, ready for whatever was coming. The other kids gathered around, forming a circle. No one spoke. It was as if time had stopped. Everyone was watching, waiting to see what would happen. Kyle stepped forward, his fists clenched. "You want to fight? Fine," he said, his voice full of anger. Zara stood up beside her brother, her posture relaxed but strong. She wasn't afraid. "We don't have to fight, Kyle. Just leave us alone." But Kyle was beyond reason now. His pride had been hurt, and that was all that mattered. With a shout, he lunged at Zane. In one smooth motion, Zane dodged to the side. Kyle missed completely, falling to the ground. The crowd gasped. "Get up, Kyle," one of his friends shouted. Kyle scrambled to his feet, his face red with rage. He wiped the dirt off his clothes and lunged again, this time swinging a punch toward Zane's face. Zane ducked under the punch, moving with the grace of someone who had trained for years. He didn't hesitate. With a quick twist of his body, he knocked Kyle back onto the ground with a precise kick to his chest. Kyle groaned, winded from the blow. The other children were silent, their eyes wide with shock. No one had expected Zane to be so fast, so strong. Zara stepped forward again, her voice cold and firm. "This is your last warning, Kyle. Leave us alone. We don't want to hurt you." But Kyle was stubborn. He wasn't going to back down now. He got to his feet again, this time with more determination in his eyes. "You think you can embarrass me and get away with it?" he shouted. "I'm not scared of you." He rushed at Zane again, but this time, Zane was ready. He blocked Kyle's punch with ease, using his opponent's momentum to throw him to the ground once more. This time, the circle of kids around them wasn't just watching. They were staring in awe. Some of them looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Others were afraid to move, afraid of the power the twins held. Kyle, his face bruised and beaten, stood up one last time. His anger was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Fear. The crowd was silent as they waited to see if he would try again. The events at school had settled down after Kyle's failed challenges. The other kids were quiet, unsure of what to think. Zara and Zane were no longer seen as just jungle kids. They were something more, something the other children couldn't understand. For the twins, though, the quiet didn't last long. They were used to the noise of the jungle, to the constant danger. School, for all its normalcy, felt strange. They didn't belong here, and they didn't try to. The jungle had taught them to be strong, to be alert, but here they had to learn new rules. They still didn't fit in, and that was fine with them. The days passed in a blur of classes and strange glances, but one day something unexpected happened. It was a cool, cloudy afternoon when their world changed again. Zara and Zane had just finished their lunch and were walking back to class when they heard footsteps behind them. They didn't need to look to know who it was. It was Kyle. Again. But this time, he wasn't with his friends. This time, he was alone. Zara turned to look at her brother, her eyes narrowed. Zane just glanced back, his expression calm. Whatever was coming, they were ready. "Zara." "Zane," Kyle called, his voice softer than before. "I need to talk to you." Zara raised an eyebrow. "What do you want, Kyle?" He hesitated for a moment, as if unsure of his next words. Finally, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. I owe you both an apology." The twins exchanged surprised glances. This wasn't the Kyle they knew. He had always been the one to tease, the one to challenge. But now he was apologizing. "I know I've been a jerk," Kyle said, his voice full of regret. "But after what happened, I started thinking. I don't know who you are, really, and I was wrong to judge you. So, I wanted to say sorry." Zara didn't say anything at first. She just studied him, trying to figure out what had changed. But Zane was the one who spoke. "Why now?" Zane asked, his tone steady but curious. "You didn't have to apologize." Kyle looked down at his feet. "I saw something in you too," he said, almost in a whisper. "Something different. You're not like the others." And that scared me. The twins didn't respond right away. What Kyle said wasn't surprising. They had always known they were different. But now, it seemed like he was starting to understand it. Zara stepped closer to him. "We didn't want to hurt you," she said softly. "We just wanted to make it clear that we're not weak." Kyle nodded. "I see that now. But there's something else I want to know." Zara and Zane exchanged a look. "What's that?" Zara asked. Kyle took a deep breath. "You're both really strong, but I don't get it. I mean, how did you learn to fight like that? You said you grew up in the jungle. But what exactly did you do there?" Zara and Zane paused. This was the question they had been waiting for, the one they had been dreading. They had kept their past hidden for so long, and now it felt like the world was about to learn the truth. Zara glanced at Zane, and he nodded. It was time. "We didn't just grow up in the jungle," Zane began, his voice low. "We were trained to survive there. Our father was a soldier. He taught us everything: how to fight, how to survive in the wild, and how to protect ourselves. Our mother taught us how to track, how to listen to the sounds of the forest. We lived every day like it was our last. The jungle doesn't care if you're strong or weak. It just wants you to survive. Kyle's eyes widened. He had no idea. So, you weren't just playing in the jungle. You were learning to fight for real. Zane nodded. Yes, every day was a lesson. We didn't have the luxury of living like you. We had to learn quickly, or we wouldn't have made it. Kyle took a step back, his mind racing. That's crazy. I never knew. All this time, I thought you were just strange. But now I see you're not like anyone I've ever met. Zara's expression softened. We don't want to be different. We didn't come here to stand out. We came to learn, just like everyone else. Kyle looked at them with a mix of awe and confusion. You've been through so much, and yet, you're still here. You didn't let it break you. I can't even imagine. The twins didn't answer right away. They didn't need to. What Kyle said was true. They had been through things that no one should ever experience. But it had shaped them, made them who they were. After a long pause, Kyle spoke again. I don't know if I can ever understand what you've been through, but I want to learn. I want to know what it really means to be strong, like you. Zara studied him carefully, then nodded. Strength doesn't come from fighting. It comes from surviving. It's about being able to keep going, no matter what happens. Zane looked at him. If you really want to understand, you have to stop judging people before you know their story. Kyle stood there, thinking about what they had said. I think I understand now, he said quietly. Maybe I've been judging you because I was afraid. I thought you were a threat. But I see now that you're not a threat. You're survivors. Zara and Zane didn't say anything more. They didn't need to. The apology was enough. The truth had been revealed. And in that moment, it felt like the weight of their past was finally shared with someone else. As Kyle turned and walked away, Zara and Zane stood there in silence, looking at each other. It wasn't just about school anymore. It wasn't just about fitting in. This was something deeper, something they couldn't ignore. They had made a choice. They had chosen to survive. And now, they had a chance to show the world what that really meant. This part reveals the twins' hidden past and their survival story, building more depth to their characters. It also shows how Kyle's perception of them changes, and the twins' ability to stand firm in their truth. This adds a layer of emotional depth, while keeping the suspense high as they slowly start to trust others. Let me know if you need any changes. The school began to change after the truth about Zara and Zane spread. Students no longer called them jungle kids with laughter or cruelty. Instead, they whispered those words with wonder and curiosity. Some kids started showing respect. A few even asked the twins questions about their past. But most still kept their distance. They were unsure. Some feared them. Others admired them from afar. But not Kyle. Ever since he apologized, Kyle had been trying to prove he had changed. He started walking with Zara and Zane during breaks. He asked about the jungle, their family, and their training. He listened, really listened, like he wanted to understand. Zane stayed quiet most of the time. He still didn't fully trust Kyle. But Zara was different. She saw something in him, a boy who wanted to be better. Maybe even someone who needed their strength to find his own. One day, as the three of them sat under a tree near the schoolyard, Kyle looked serious. You know what he said, I want to be stronger, not just in fighting, but inside. Like you too. Zara looked at him. That kind of strength isn't taught. It's built. I want to learn, Kyle replied. Zane spoke for the first time. Then you have to be ready to face pain. Kyle nodded. I am. But words are easy. Proving loyalty. That's the real test. The trouble begins. Later that week, during PE class, the coach asked students to pair up for a strength challenge. One student would climb a rope while the other timed them. It seemed simple, but something unexpected happened. Zara was climbing when a loud snap echoed through the gym. The rope had broken near the top. She fell, Hard. The room went silent. A sharp gasp passed through the students. Zara hit the mat, pain flashing across her face. She groaned, holding her shoulder. "Zara!" Zane shouted, rushing to her side. Kyle ran after him. The teacher called for help, and soon Zara was taken to the nurse's office. The fall wasn't deadly, but her shoulder was badly hurt. She wouldn't be climbing anything for a while. But something didn't feel right. That rope had been strong. Too strong to snap like that. Later, while Zane sat beside Zara in the nurse's room, Kyle came in, his face pale. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. Zane stood up fast. "What?" Kyle lowered his voice. "I overheard something. Two guys were talking near the equipment room. They said they cut the rope." Zara blinked. "Cut it? Why?" Kyle looked guilty. "They were trying to scare you. They thought it would be funny to bring you down a little. I think they're scared of how strong you are." Zane's hands clenched into fists. "Who were they?" Kyle hesitated. It was Max and Jordan. Max and Jordan were Kyle's old friends, the same bullies who had once followed him around, laughing at the twins. They had gone quiet since the fight, but now it seemed they were still full of hate. "You have to tell someone," Zara said. "The teachers. The principal." Kyle looked away. "If I do, they'll come after me next." Zane stepped forward. "So you want us to stay quiet?" Kyle shook his head. "No, I'll do it. I just needed you to know first. I don't want to be like them anymore." Zara gave him a small nod. "Then you're stronger already." Facing the past. The next day, Kyle went to the principal's office. He told everything about the rope, about Max and Jordan, and how they planned it. There was an investigation. Max and Jordan were questioned. At first, they denied everything. But when the teachers found the cut rope hidden in the gym storage, it was over. They were suspended for 2 weeks. Zara returned to class with her arm in a sling. Students looked at her differently now, not just with curiosity, but with quiet respect. Everyone had heard what happened. They knew someone had tried to hurt her, and they knew who stood beside her. Kyle. When he walked into the classroom that morning, he didn't look proud. He looked nervous. But Zara gave him a small smile, and Zane nodded. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. The school was quiet again, but this time, for a different reason. Everyone had heard about Max and Jordan's suspension. Everyone had seen Kyle walk into class with his head held high, and everyone now looked at the twins, Zara and Zane, not as outcasts, but as something else, something untouchable. But peace never stays for long. 1 week later, Max and Jordan returned. Their eyes burned with silent anger. They didn't say anything to the teachers. They didn't cause trouble. But Zara and Zane could feel the tension, like a storm waiting to break. And it did. The trap. That Friday after school, Zara and Zane were walking home alone. Kyle had stayed behind for extra class. As they passed a quiet alley behind the school, 2 shadows stepped into their path. Max and Jordan. Zane's eyes narrowed. Zara took a step forward, unafraid. "We don't want trouble," Zane said calmly. Max smirked. "Too bad. You brought trouble when you made us look weak." Jordan added, "Now we're going to show you what real pain feels like." They weren't alone. 2 older boys stepped out behind them. Boys who didn't even go to their school. Big, strong, ready to fight. Zara and Zane stood still, no fear in their eyes. "You planned this?" Zara asked. Max nodded. "We're not fighting fair this time." Zane whispered, "Then you've made a mistake." The fight began in seconds. One of the older boys lunged at Zane, but Zane ducked and swept his legs. The boy hit the ground hard. Zara blocked a punch from Jordan and countered with a strike to his chest, knocking him back. Max rushed in, grabbing a pipe from behind the wall. But before he could swing it, a loud voice shouted, "Stop!" Everyone froze. It was Kyle. He stood at the edge of the alley, holding his phone. "I called the police," he said. "They're on their way." Max looked at him in shock. "You traitor." Kyle stepped forward. "You lost the moment you touched them. They didn't want this fight. You chose it." The older boys ran. Jordan tried to follow, limping. Max stared, his face pale, then dropped the pipe and ran too. Zara and Zane stood in silence, their breaths heavy. Kyle walked up to them. "You okay?" he asked. Zara nodded slowly. "We didn't want to hurt anyone." "But we would have," Zane added, "if we had to." Kyle looked at them, full of respect. "I know. That's why you're different. That's why you're stronger." The final bell. Later that evening, the three of them sat on the school rooftop, watching the sky. The stars were coming out. The city lights blinked in the distance. Zane spoke softly. "We didn't ask to fight, but the world keeps testing us." Zara added, "And we'll keep passing those tests." Kyle looked at them both. "People used to laugh at you. Now they look up to you." Zara smiled. "Let them look. We're not hiding anymore." Zane nodded. "From now on, they'll know. We're not just jungle kids. We are warriors." And as the wind moved gently across the rooftop, the three of them sat together, not just as classmates, but as something more. As a team. As survivors. As family.